Chair, we have quorum when you're ready.
Good afternoon, or almost evening. We will call the meeting to order. Roll call.
Chair Lorene,
Here.
Vice Chair Bromfield,
Here.
Board Member Rich,
Here.
Board Member Strom,
Here.
Board Member Massing, Board Member Mathers, Board Member Vitale.
Here. All right. Can we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, did everyone receive the minutes from our last meeting? Yes. Do we have any comments? Would someone like to make a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve.
Second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay, thank you. All right, everyone has seen the agenda for this evening?
Yes.
Do we have any comment? Would anybody like to make a motion to approve it?
I approve the agenda.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, great. Comments from the public on non-agenda items. We have a Miss Rosemary Westling. All right, fantastic. Please come up forward.
Hi, I thought this meeting was going to have the commissioners and the city attorney here as well. Can you hear me?
Yes, very much so. Thank you.
So I made a mistake, but my comments will apply to you folks
Okay.
as well. My name's Rosemary Westlane. I've lived in Jensen Beach since 2011. I remember how thrilled I was to see a nesting pair of bald eagles on Indian River Parkway near Baker Road. That was great. As well as in the ponds along Green River Parkway, there were roseate spoonbills, sandhill cranes, wood storks, and other protected and endangered species. Less than a mile from my house, there have been over 60 acres bulldozed, or will shortly be bulldozed, to the tune of 1,100 units going in, none of which I can afford, and more are in the pipeline. I moved out of Fort Lauderdale to get away from the explosive growth, the construction, the congestion, and the traffic. I cannot simply pick up and move again. I have heard some say that we need housing for the people that work in the community. Please tell me what kind of workers we need that can afford a $350,000 townhouse plus fees. You would need, which is the Avonlea properties that are destroying all the natural habitat in our area. According to LendingTree, to be able to afford a $350,000 home, you would need to make at least $80,000 a year. You would need at least a $70,000 deposit. I don't think there's a firefighter, a paramedic, a teacher, or a nurse who can afford that kind of payments. And that's what we are building. The only buildings that aren't really well over $350,000 are those fabricated homes down on Indian River Drive. I spoke with a woman from Brightline. I don't know if this is too relevant to you, but it just goes along with the destruction of the quality of life around here. So I spoke with Katie Meisner from Brightline. According to her, the Brightline train will come through here 32 times a day between the hours of 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. That's about every 26 minutes. And that doesn't include the regular heavy trains that are scheduled to come through day and night. I don't see how this destruction of habitat, the building of costly townhomes, condominiums, and even that dumb apartment complex on US 1, that 4-story thing that was approved, none of this is affordable. I mean, who's your audience here? You're not helping the people of Stewart or Jensen Beach or Martin County. I don't know whose side you're on, us, the people that live here, or some person that might move in sometime in the future. I have heard the conflicting information about the zoning laws, and I spoke with Toby Oberdorf the other day, and he said that the zoning, it's not up to the state to say what we're zoning around here, that we can do it ourselves. But I've heard other people say
Ma'am,
that, what?
the 3 minutes are up.
Okay, so, all right, well, thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for coming to speak. All right, do we have any comments from board members on non-agenda items?
Madam Chair, just to let the board know, I have a potential conflict of interest because the seller of the property to this project is Glassrod and Associates, and they're one of my clients.
Okay.
So I'll not be entertaining any of the discussion or voting.
Okay, thank you for letting us know. Okay, now let's move on to the action items.
Good afternoon, LPA Board, Madam Chair. Tom Reed, Senior Planner for the record. This is the Silverthorne Rpud request for future land use map change and a zoning change for 86 attached townhome units. Location is on the southeast corner of Indian Street and Commerce Avenue. It's 9.43 acres. The existing land use is commercial. It was annexed into the city in the fall of '97 with this land use, as well as the existing zoning of CPUD. Tonight, the applicant's proposing to change the land use to multifamily to allow for the 86 townhome units, as well as change the zoning from CPUD to RPUD. So the site plan will consist of 3 phases. The model at the southern end of the project, as well as the 4 buildings closest to the intersection. Phase 2 will consist of the 4 interior buildings, and then finally Phase 3 will be the buildings closest to the entrance at the south end of the project. There's also a clubhouse and pool that will be built by the 10th CO of a unit. There will be a proposed wet and dry retention and also proposed lake at the south end of the project. Staff is asking for and has recommended that this be connected and that the water stages from one area or from the retention to the lake area, as well as put in littoral plantings that will cause or create an irregular shape to the proposed lake. So the applicant is asking to depart from in the code in a couple different areas. The first one, section 207, dealing with native vegetation. Native vegetation excludes wetlands. By the South Florida Water Management, there are no wetlands on this site, and that not less than 25% of the total development site remain as undeveloped native vegetation area. The required native vegetation area may include open space areas, the landscape buffer between the site and adjacent properties. However, the interior landscaping can't count towards the native vegetation. And the location of native vegetation area shall be determined by using a study of the site with consideration to the value of the existing vegetation. Now, the applicant has hired an environmentalist to do an assessment, and they have come up with no native upland habitat that was observed on the property. And also, the city's environmental consultant confirms that there are no wetlands or habitat that exist on the site. However, staff recommends, and it's under the staff's, how we perceive the code, that the applicant provide no less than 25% or recreate 25% of the site as an upland habitat. I will say that the applicant has made efforts to offset the required native vegetation and has identified certain trees to remain and trees to be relocated on the site. The current plan proposes 17 trees to remain, mostly slash pines. 114 trees, both pines and oaks, will be removed. And then 73 of the trees, mostly the palms, will be relocated. As far as mitigation is concerned, the hardwood requirement is for 905 inches. The applicant's providing 963 inches, all on site. The slash pine, 915 inches, is up to 1249, provided on site. There is a second request to depart from the code, and that is in the width of the sidewalks. Currently, there exists a 6-foot wide sidewalk on Indian Street and Commerce. And staff has consulted or asked Martin County if they would mind if an 8-foot sidewalk would be put in. It's in the county's right-of-way. And Lisa Witcher has said that she'd prefer not to have the 8-foot wide sidewalk to maintain. However, if the city requests it, then she would be okay with that being placed there. With that, staff's recommendation is that the LPA consider the application and either find the application in compliance or approved in compliance subject to certain conditions or modifications that you may come up with, or not in compliance and not approved. That concludes staff's presentation. The applicant does have their own presentation.
Okay, thank you. Whoever is going to present for the applicant, please come forward.
Hello, Doug Fitzwater with Lucido and Associates.
Sorry, what's your name?
Doug Fitzwater with Lucido and Associates. You can turn the lights on. All right, perfect. So this is the Silverthorne PUD, as Tom had mentioned. I just wanted to show you a slide of the notice requirements and the people that we sent out notice letters to. So signs were posted on the property, as well as mailings were sent out to the surrounding property owners. This application is for a small-scale land use amendment from commercial to multifamily and rezoning from CPUD to RPUD for approval of 86 townhome units. Here's a location map. This is the property right here, 9.5 acre site. Adjacent, we have Plantation Storage. We have AHS at Harbor Ridge here across the street. We have signalization here, here, and here, which I'll get to in a moment. Comfort Suites, and then Paradigm Precision right in this area here. And here's the Trillium project, which is under construction now, adjacent to the Walmart and the Aldi. So it gives you a little bit of context. We're requesting to change the land use from commercial to multifamily and CPUD to RPUD. And again, here's the property outlines. This is the proposed site plan for the Silverthorne PUD. 86 units. We have a shared access with Plantation Storage coming in here, and the reason that it's located here is because it's directly across from the AHS VHS project. We have the 86 townhome units, and it's been reviewed by fire rescue. We've done auto turn analysis on it, so it does meet the fire code. And then talking about the native habitat, Jennifer Alcedo with our environmentalist has gone out on site. There are no wetlands on site, and there is no high habitat. But what we do want to do is, as Tom mentioned in the presentation, is we want to create habitat all throughout here. And what we're doing is we're planting all 100% native trees. And then we also have what's a little bit different for a landscape plan, where we actually have a native mix of landscaping that we're doing. So it's planted throughout the buffer areas and in the back in the stormwater retention. And then additionally, we're preserving trees on site, which are the existing trees that remain, which are highlighted in orange. So we've worked with our civil engineer, Melissa, who's here as well, to try and preserve these trees, and then also along Indian Street. And want to address the sidewalk as well. We do have an existing 6-foot sidewalk along Commerce. Commerce is maintained by Martin County. 6 feet does meet the requirements for Martin County, as Lisa Wixer mentioned that she doesn't really want to maintain an 8-foot sidewalk. But as part of the development application, Meritage will remove this 6-foot sidewalk and increase it to 8 feet to be compliant with city code. Along along Indian Street, there's difficulty expanding it out beyond 6 feet because we have existing power poles. So when we expand out to the 8 feet, we'll all of a sudden have a power pole on a portion of our sidewalk. So we're recommending to maintain that at 6 feet. And then also for an improvement on Commerce that's directed by Martin County, we're having this as a right turn only and a left in to help alleviate traffic concerns on Indian Street. And Melissa, who did our traffic report, can go into more depth with that if as needed. But again, here's the graphic showing the median that we are planning on planting out with landscaping, and then it will also be maintained by the Property Owners Association for this project. So this is an architectural elevation of what's proposed out there. It's a contemporary style, and it's very similar to the units that are being constructed at the Trillium project over by the Walmart. So very similar. And then also wanted to add this one because this is with Plantation Storage, and I wanted to put on the record for Charles, who owns the property. He contacted us yesterday. He was concerned about construction access to the property. He was concerned because we do have a shared access that, having asphalt trucks and heavy machinery running through there would tear up the roadway. Shared access. We do have an access that doesn't use that driveway. So that was a concern of our neighbor. So what I want to do now is turn it over to Meritage, and they can discuss who they are and what they do, their current projects that they have in the city, and answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, thank you.
I'm Michael D'Amelio with Meritage Homes.
I'm sorry, what's your name?
Michael D'Amelio. And as Doug mentioned, we have a project nearby, Trillium Homes. Thank you. This project will mirror that very closely. As you may know, Meritage prides itself on building leading-edge, well-engineered, well-designed homes that are sensitive to the environment. We provide a lot of amenities in the home in terms of providing foam insulation, highly efficient HVAC systems, and smart houses to make sure that we provide that kind of element of quality to the home. Beyond that, I'd be happy to answer any question you might have particular to this project.
Does anybody have any questions? Well, we will ask questions in a minute. We'll wait to make sure that there's no public comment, and then we'll ask you to come back. Is there anybody else from the presentation for the applicant? Okay. So we have no public comment? Okay.
Good evening. I'm Linda K. Richards. I live in Banner Point in Stewart. So here we are, asking for a future land use change, a change to our comprehensive plan. We're looking to add 86 more units right across the street where we have 324 units going in. Comes out on Indian Street, right by the train crossing. 32 more trains coming through a day. Traffic is going to paralyze our city. The growth that has been approved is too much. It is really time for the city of Stewart to stop, put on the brakes, let what's been approved get built out, and see where we're at. I cannot believe that there's, I think, 2,800 units in the pipeline right now, and you're looking at adding more. Again, I'm just asking you to look at it, think about what has already been approved, and put a stop to this growth until we are out of control. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good evening, Robin Cartwright, 703 Southeast Hibiscus. Well, here we are again. Another annex parcel submitted by a developer to get approved. A developer who does not own the land but will buy it if the city of Stewart will give them what they want. But I'm not going to talk about the fact that the land was annexed because a developer can build higher, add to more population and density, and have fewer setbacks. I'm not going to point out that for all the comments about housing, we are in the process of building 3,000 more units, none of which is attainable or affordable. I'm not going to talk about the fact that we've all learned that traffic reports do not include anything that is pending in the pipeline. I'm not going to talk about how, yes, the developers have a right to build, but the LPA and the city have a right to say no. I'm not even going to talk about the departures, and I do love that new term versus variance, by the way. I'm not even going to tell you to vote no. What I am going to ask is that you do not push this forward. This does not deserve a second to go to the city commission. What I've learned over the last 3 years, other than we are screaming into a black void, is that this process is inherently flawed. Like the other requests before you previously, this is not a request. This is 3 requests. You have a land use change, you have a zoning request, and then you have a request for variances, it's also known as now departures, and you're being asked to review 3 requests that if in the county or anywhere else, this would be 3 separate hearings and 3 separate processes. And if this is how city staff presents it to you and that's how you vote, that's fine, but it's 3 ordinances rolled into 1 ordinance, and it's not fair to those of us who live here. So while you're voting and the city commission is voting to cast 1 vote, we are fighting 3 fights, and there's no way at that point that we can ever win. So please do not push this forward.
Thank you very much. Okay. Is that all public comment for the evening? Anything online?
Comments later?
No, this is the time. We have official time for comments. So this is the time. If you have any more comments, do we have any comments online? No comments online. Okay, fantastic. All right, board comment. Anybody like to go?
I'll start. The north of the lake, the swale area, is the existing trees to remain in the depressed portion of the swale area, or is the swale going around and that's upland? So yeah, where you had the pointer, north of the lake, outlined around where those trees to remain are. Yeah. Do you know what I'm saying, Melissa?
Good evening, everybody. Melissa Corbett for the record, the Milcor Group. I'm the civil engineer. There is some earthwork going on around there, but it is not going to be depressed to the point where the trees are going to drown. It is
Okay.
dry retention.
Okay. I noticed on our site plan, we don't have what you worked out, I guess, with the city and the county on the right turn only on the Indian Street from Commerce. Has that been, the site plan been updated?
Yes, it should be in your packet as the latest. If it's not, I apologize. We do have the latest site plan, right out only, left lane median extended, no left turn from Commerce to Indian.
Okay. And then that median, I think one of you said that that's going to be maintained by Meritage? Or the HOA, once it's
Correct.
done?
I'm Dante Frigari with Meritage Homes, and yes, so Meritage will go ahead and construct all the improvements based on the comments from the Martin County. We will go ahead and plant that as well, create some irrigation within that median, so whatever that we do plant does survive. Meritage's HOA will maintain that median, so this way, when we come through and we mow all the yards, we prune and fertilize, all that will be consistent. It's similar to what we've done on several of our other projects here within the city itself. Our HOA just maintains it.
Okay,
For consistency purposes, it just looks better that way.
okay. I noticed, I saw the pool and the cabana. I'd just like to know the thought process into not having more outdoor amenities. Is it because of the size of the project, or?
Well, I mean, it's a combination. One, it was the size of the project. The second thing is that, you know, most of the projects that we've built here in Martin County, City of Stuart, they are for that specific buyer profile, the attainable housing itself. I know that several folks have gotten up here and have spewed, some dollar value or unaffordable. One of the things that we pride ourselves on is that we've done a market analysis, and we studied the area even before we even started looking for parcels within this geographic area of Martin County, City of Stuart itself. The base price for these units here will be about $270,000. They're all 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath. They're fee simple, so they're not rental type units. The units range as far as from a single car to a 2-car garage. They range from 1,480 square feet to 1,800 square feet.
Okay, thank you. I know there was a comment about.
I'm sorry to interrupt. but
Yeah.
I would ask that you ask the applicant not to impugn the input from the citizens who take the time and come here and characterize what they say as spewing.
Okay,
Absolutely.
thank you.
And, you
nor-
know,
nor was that-
you will be accorded the same respect, so I would ask that you.
Absolutely, and nor was my comment addressed to that. Obviously, I just wanted to just make sure that, that the alignment as far as the analysis that we conducted, as far as the housing type, the product, and the cost of the units itself was as big. And we took that, we took that really seriously, and again, that's how we got into the market itself. So through a ton of time, a lot of investment in dollars as far as finding out, who that buyer profile is. And I can tell you that in the communities that we have constructed, we do have the folks from the local fire rescue. We do have the school teachers. We do have the nurses. We have those folks that live in our communities today, that live in the City of Stuart, in Martin County.
Thank you. I know there was a comment about bike racks on the site plan. I didn't see them shown, so those need to be added. The trash collection, I know each unit has their own trash bins, and so there's going to be a restriction on when it's a trash collection day, no on-street parking.
Correct. There's going to be something in our deed restrictions, our CCNRs.
When it's not a trash day, what is typical of on-street parking?
Well, we have on-street parking scattered throughout we have parking spaces, guest parking as we deem them, and we also have a parking space for the postal carrier as well.
Okay, and the postal service is up front in the cabana?
Correct. We have the mail kiosk will be part of the cabana building itself, and there's a designated spot for the mail carrier, so when they pull in, they have their own designated spot.
Okay. Gates also, there's a note about pointing to where the gates are, they're not shown on the site plan. proposed vehicular gates. One other thing.
Right, this general area right here.
Yeah.
So we have a turnaround as well, and we've done the auto turn for specific vehicles. So when you do pull up to the gate, it's like any other gate area itself. You know, during the day, the gates may be open or not, depending upon, you know, the HOA, but if someone comes in, presses the button, you can scroll through, find who you need to, it dials up their house. But as far as for emergency access and all, we've coordinated that through the fire department as well. They've been involved in the process, and we've been consistent with the other two projects, with the Seaside and the Trillium project, and worked well with the fire emergency folks.
And
As
then
well as the trash receptacle, the trash trucks coming through.
on your Trillium project or any of your other ones, do you have a 6-foot vinyl fence around it?
We do,
Okay.
we do.
So is that pretty common, Tom and Kevin, to have a 6-foot vinyl fence versus like a precast concrete?
It's not, it's common, no, it's not common. We would recommend a masonry or
I would
a
recommend a
decorative wall.
precast,
Yeah.
precast concrete or
Yeah,
masonry.
Yeah, and one thing I should point out, which wasn't relayed during the staff presentation, there's been a number of discussions regarding the layout of this site, and staff were not particularly happy with how the site was laid out, and we've obviously, I have concerns about the buffer at the northern end of the site, between the units and Indian Street. I have concern about the rear architectural elevations which face onto Commerce Avenue, and that impact on Commerce Avenue and the view shed there. I have concerns about the lack of design consideration for the existing trees. I know there's been some effort now taken to resolve that, but I think we've heard from a staff point of view loud and clear from City Commission, and this is the points that I'm making every day to applicants when they come in, is to look at more imaginative stormwater treatment. The use of dry detention areas is not particularly recommended in terms of water quality now. Yes, the city code is not up to speed with the requirement to do low-impact development initiatives, but this is a PUD, and that's part of the PUD agreement, is to engage with some of these things. And we'll also engage with some of the benefits, the amenities that I would have liked to have seen listed that were, engaged with this development. So in essence, staff has reported pieces of the code that it did not comply with if it was straight zoning. But the other pieces, there is no specific code that we have to enforce. The architectural detail of where it faces, the buffer to the north of Indian Street and so forth. So it's a PUD, and that is the negotiation.
Okay, and so I kind of get the sense from that if there's, like was mentioned, this is 3 approvals in 1, staff is somewhat uncomfortable with some of these items, like the buffers with some of these units, the native vegetation. I kind of feel like it's not maybe where it needs to be at this point. I'll let other board members
Yeah,
talk,
let's-
but that's,
Yeah,
absolutely.
let's go ahead and, Brian, did you have anything else?
yeah, that's good.
Okay, does anybody else have anything else?
I do.
Okay, fantastic. Go for it.
Okay, I'm going to start small here and then move out. And first of all, I'm very excited that Melissa Corbett is here, because you're the traffic person, correct? And the last time I was digging into a traffic study, the applicant's traffic person did not show us the respect of showing up, so. You work for the Milcor Group, and I have a copy of your traffic impact analysis. So, and I'm going to go to and maybe you can walk me through this and help me understand how these work. In my mind, and correct me if I'm wrong, there's two ways an applicant could fail a traffic analysis. The development could put so much traffic onto the roads that, you know, the county would feel that is unsuitable. Or the roads could currently be so congested they can't accept more traffic, right? Is that the main two ways? I mean, my concern, to me, the worst stretch of road in the city is Monterey Road between US 1 and A1A. That has become impassable. And I'm really scared that that's what's going to happen here. So it says here, analysis, Exhibit 5, analysis based on Martin County 2019 data. That's the traffic data you used from 2019?
Melissa Corbett again for the Milcor Group. So when you do traffic studies, you are required and obligated to use certain formulas and formats. I am required to use DOT, actually it's not DOT, it's the Institute of Traffic Engineers, ITE formulas. That's how all of the trip generation for the site is calculated. When you are distributing it out onto the roadways, you are required to use the published local municipality data. These are Martin County roadways, so I am obligated to use Martin County data.
Okay,
I
so
was-
2019, okay.
I was on there this morning.
Yeah.
And just checking, because I was working on another project, and that is the latest data that is published, is
So when it
2019.
says 2019 data, does that mean it reflects the traffic in the year 2019? Or
Yes, sir. It was
Okay,
traffic
so it
counts.
was provided to you,
By
this is
Martin
data
County.
that was generated January 1, 2020.
I don't know what exact date it was generated. It was traffic counts that were done by Martin County. A copy of that report is, if you've got the traffic report, it's actually included in there, so you can see where I got the data from.
I'm just trying to understand how stale the data is, because would you agree there's a lot more traffic now than there was in 2019?
The traffic data also includes growth rates that are calculated based on historic data.
Right,
And
and
those
the
growth
growth
rates
rate,
are
the
used.
growth rate you used was 0.7%?
Wait, and can I just comment here? I would say, yeah, that's a completely invalid calculation here. As she did point out, we are through a time of tremendous growth in this county. So using historic data that is gonna be greatly outdated, and I know you're probably just following a process, but I really don't think that that's valid in this case.
I mean, do you know what the growth rate in the county is now, with all the new units?
The
I mean,
historic-
did you even take into account the development right across the street? No, you didn't.
But
Okay, no, you didn't. So I understand
I'm
why it happened.
following the rules that I am required to
right.
follow. I'm not, this isn't stuff I just made up. It's a process that I am obligated to follow.
I understand, but you're using stale data with an absurdly low growth rate. My question to staff, how is this valid? Why do you accept this? Why don't you say, look,
I would agree with that
why
comment.
don't you at least adjust the growth rate?
I'm not a qual-
I
we're
mean,
not a
this
quali-
is,
Okay.
this is useless, really.
It complies with what the city asks for in its code and how traffic transportation is calculated. I understand that, you know, exactly where you're coming from. I'm not a traffic engineer, and we rely on our consultant traffic engineers to advise us whether it complies with the latest and the correct methodology. And
The
that's where we
correct,
stand.
no, come on.
I don't make
You're
things up.
dealing with a community that experienced explosive growth, and you're just going to fall back. Well, that's what the formula says.
That's my job.
Okay. Well,
And unfortunately,
Mike, would you like to address?
Big point of clarification.
Yeah.
I am a traffic engineer. No, I'm just kidding.
You stayed at a Holiday Inn.
I know nothing about traffic other than I've been in it before. But as it relates to the state of Florida and licensing, another example will be our building inspector. If in fact someone has a code enforcement and our building inspector says that that roof is unsafe, if the homeowner presents a sworn statement from a licensed engineer saying that that roof is safe, and that engineer is licensed in the state of Florida, our building inspector is not able to say, you're wrong, I don't believe you. Our building inspector has to follow the licensing. If he thinks the guy is grossly inadequate, he has the right to report that person to a professional agency. But our staff is the same way. They have to present to you, the board, and you guys get to digest the information, and agreed that you clearly can reject and/or accept any information you receive from any of the witnesses during these hearings. But if in fact staff were to actually change information that a licensed professional in the state of Florida presented to the board, it would create significant problems, and I imagine they'd probably get fired.
Okay.
But for what it's worth, I understand, and I'm not disputing your perceptions. I'm just pointing out that I'm not blaming them for it, but I do think that the board in its collective whole has the ability to weigh the information available to them.
Thank you, Mike, fair enough. So, just based on those answers, just on this single element, I view this as an incomplete and inadequate study, so I view the application incomplete, but I'll continue. So, thank you, Melissa. It's frustrating. It's a big issue in the city, so.
And I understand it. I mean, the only other thing we could do is install traffic counters, which we do have, and get more current data, but
Right.
But even to that, but I think your point and to that point, that data is still not going to be completely accurate when looking at this, just because of the totality of the building development across the way. So really, until that's done, nothing is going to be completely knowing and predicting what the future will look like.
Yeah, so a follow-up question, and Mike or staff. If someone submits you a report, a traffic study, can you say, no, this is inadequate, this fails, this is not acceptable, we can't go forward with this?
We are obliged to take the licensed professional signing and sealing that report as our mark.
So as long as they
Yes.
follow the
As we do with
strictures.
engineering drawings, landscape plans, if those are signed and sealed,
Right.
we can't interfere with those.
So Campbell, I think that's where our responsibility as a board in the discussion we're having can now take that a step further.
Right. Okay, so you want an amendment to the comprehensive land use plan. And to me, that's a big ask, okay? You're asking a lot. I mean, the comprehensive plan was adopted in 1989. The city has evaluated its blueprint for the future twice, 96 and 2009, and in 2019, I happened to be part of that. We sat in this room for a couple days. The staff worked very hard to make considerable presentations. We hired outside experts, and we came up with this blueprint to help guide us move forward, okay? So when you come in here as a developer and say, oh, just change that. I mean, you could have come, you've had this designation since '95 apparently. You could have come at that time and say, hey, look, we need to look at this, but you didn't. So this is where we're at now. So there's two ways to look at.
Oh, hold on one second.
If you
Yes.
want to continue, I have a question along the same vein, but if you want to continue.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I actually have a similar question too.
Okay, so there's two ways to go with the comprehensive plan, and you're going the traditional way. You're going, okay, how do we squeeze this in? And staff goes, okay, policy 1.A3.2, which strikes me as really odd, because 1A3.2 is 1A is maintain, this is the head for this section you're in, maintain and enhance Stewart's quality of life, natural beauty, and small-town waterfront character, its stable residential neighborhoods, and its status as the commercial institutional hub for Great Martin County. I mean, you're hanging by a very thin thread there in that section, if you ask me, to be taking this commercial property on Commerce Avenue and change it to residential in this onslaught of, you know, new residences in the town. Now, the other two reasons are 1A 7.1 and 1A 7.2. That's more sensible. That's future land use categories. But in the paragraph at the head of that category, it says, neither these policies nor the future land use map shall be construed to mean that every parcel in its designated area is suitable for the designated use. And it basically, most of that paragraph says, yes, this potential exists, but we don't have to give it to you. And there's quite a few reasons why we don't have to. There's another way to look at the comprehensive land use plan. We can say, let's look at how you are currently, your current designation, and is that a good fit for what we're trying to achieve based on the comprehensive land use plan? And I'm going to hand this down. I need an assistant. Sorry. Okay. Could you hand those down? I don't think I've ever seen an element in the comprehensive land use plan that more precisely describes your property. And that's if you look at the economic development element. You know, we have all these new places to live in Stewart, but we got to make sure we got jobs for them, okay? Goal statement 11. The city will develop and maintain an economic environment that will encourage the creation, expansion, and retention of business within city limits while maintaining a high quality of life for its residents. 11A1, retain existing businesses and attracting new businesses. Provide supporting services for the retention of existing businesses and attracting new businesses. Okay? What a great piece of commercial property. Look at the new businesses that have come into that new, right? You got Haag, you got, I'm not sure who took over that giant building on the same side. 11A11, the city will seek to ensure the allocation of an appropriate quantity of lands that are desirable for commercial and industrial purposes to serve future growth needs of the city. That's you. That's this piece of property. 11A12, the city will seek to prioritize the development of sites with high visibility and direct access to major transportation corridors for targeted and other industries and uses that encourage job creation. You guys have a rail hub. You have a spur right there. How many commercial sites in the city staff have rail spurs to them? Tom? 2, 3? I mean, that's a remarkable industrial resource. The city will seek to consider the high priority of retaining employment-generating land uses in appropriate locations during the review of comprehensive plan amendments and rezoning requests. That's you. The city will encourage the designation and preservation of industrial land for industrial uses. That's you. The city will encourage new commercial and industrial development. This fits you like a glove. This is the last piece of property in the city that I would consider an amendment for, based on this description.
Can I ask a clarification? This is deemed commercial, but isn't there a loophole that there can be some residential with commercial as long as it's mixed use?
Yes, they can have 30% of the property as residential. In this case, I think the property is 9 acres, so that would be 3 acres. If it was straight zoning, that would be about 30 units. If it went to PUD, that could go up to 30 units per acre, so that would be 90.
Okay.
Okay, now I'm going to pull way back. And I'm basically echoing the points that our citizens made. So I want the members to answer this question, and I want you just to answer it in your minds. And the reason I don't want you to answer it publicly is because I know some member or members have this number completely wrong. And I know some commissioner or commissioners have this number completely wrong. To be honest, I had it completely wrong. But I want you to guess how many units are in the pipeline right now with completion anticipated by 2025. Do you have that number? Do you have it in your head? The number is 3,095. 3,095. I was talking to staff today, and we agreed that 90% of those approvals, or, they're in various stages, are yet to be built, okay? So they're going to come online in the future. So that's units, right? So we also came up with a very conservative number. How many people? It's not really appropriate for you to answer, I'm sorry. We came up with a very, very conservative number of 2. And I actually talked to someone in Broward County later and he's going to send me some information, and it's actually slightly over 2.5, which makes a huge difference. So that is, at just 2, that's 5,570 new residents. So I want to take you back to this 2020 evaluation and appraisal report for the comprehensive plan. And we're talking about future growth of the city. And by the way, this is where you get your 0.6. This is where your figure for the growth rate came from this. I was aware of that. It is estimated. So the city, just to give you a context, the city's population increased by 911 residents during the 2010-2019 period. This is not an annualized number, members. It increased by 5.52% in 10 years. It is estimated the city's population will increase to 19,064 by the year 2035, an increase of 2,560 residents between 2019 and 2035. Okay? We have 17,000 residents now. At minimum, if we don't approve one more thing, we are going to blow by that number so far. We're going to, our growth estimate, we're going to exceed it by 217%. It's 33% annualized, 33% annualized growth. If it's 2.5, we're going to blow by our projection by 271%. That's 18% growth a year. I'm sorry, the figure before was 8% a year growth. I mean, what are we doing? I say that because we are so far beyond what we envisioned would be happening so quickly that we do not have a framework to be making these decisions sensibly. And I think we have to have a moratorium or something.
Oh, bravo.
Okay.
And we have to sit down and talk amongst ourselves and go, what is the number? What are we willing to accept? What do we want it to look like? I mean, do we want this marvelous piece of industrial property? This guy comes up and says, I want to make houses? No. That's not what we want. He's not in charge. I don't. So I guess this is the advantage of going away. I was on the board before, and I came back, and I come back, and I'm like, whoa.
I think that provides very good perspective. I agree that this property has very good use being commercial. I'm glad that you pointed out the railroad. I had thought about the railroad issue and the tie with the commercial corridor. And I also agree with you that the whole layout of the property, that there's a lot of things missing in it. Does anybody else have any other comments? Yes, ma'am.
I have a question for staff. If you can just help me see if I've kind of missed something. I'm a newbie and I value your expertise in all of this, but I think, as Campbell has said, we've got a lot of residential in the pipeline, and a zoning change feels like a really big ask that I want to kind of be like wooed, like what are you going to give me? What are you going to give me as a resident and a taxpayer in the city of Stewart to allow for this change? And we've had projects come to us that have had very clear benefit to the city. And this one kind of feels like, you going to at least buy my dinner? Like, am I missing something? Is there a benefit here that I'm not seeing, or?
And I think much to kind of what she's asking, when you guys get these type of, projects submitted to you, that it is a zoning change, is it within your responsibility to make the case, or is it whose responsibility it is to make the case that the value, as you're saying, to residents and to the city for the zone change? Mike, maybe you can clarify that for me.
The job of development is to receive every application, whether it's the best application ever submitted or the worst application ever submitted. And I'm not commenting on today's, I'm just commenting, and to process it accordingly. In 2019, the state legislature passed legislation that not only said that, but it also gave staff deadlines to expedite that so that they could not delay it. Prior to 2019, the state also passed legislation saying that staff is not allowed to say, you must go get your state agency approvals first before we process it. In fact, the legislation says staff is not allowed to say, what did South Florida Water Management or what did DEP or what did Fish and Game say? They must process it without that because they're not allowed to use state agency as a holdup. So their job is to process it. When they get here, their job is to tell you where the applicant is seeking to deviate from the code, if and when they are, and whether or not the application would be in compliance with the proposed code. You also have to remember, and we all have our own personal feelings one way or the other as it relates to almost every issue. Staff's job is to not insert their own personal feelings, but rather to continue forward on the policy set by the commission board, which I think there was maybe a total of 5 workshops now related to housing that said to staff to continue to process applications to provide more housing in our community, which would be incentivized by applicants, including the conditional things for affordable housing. And then the state said, whoa, you don't get to do that anymore. You can't conditionalize the housing on making it affordable. But the policy by the commission was to staff that that is an important issue before the city. I feel bad for these guys because they're taking the beat down on it when in fact they're not doing anything other than their jobs. The reality of it is that the LPA, the CRB, and ultimately the city commission can clearly send a message, which I think is being sent today. I can tell you that I can hear. But for what it's worth, things have to be processed, and it doesn't matter. We don't get to judge other people. It's the staff can't make the decision before it gets to you guys. You guys have to make them. Okay?
Fantastic. So I just want to make sure that that clarification is made, that you guys are doing your job, which is following the due process that you have to follow, required by the state rules and laws, and that it's our job, as what Jackie and I think a lot of us are saying, to then decide, is this a good idea and does this fit with the plan for the city, correct?
Yeah. Yes, on top of, on top of that, yes, staff brings forward things and they note where that departs from the existing code. If we want to have different criteria, then we would need to make changes to the code.
Okay.
And that's always the case. But I also want to make you all aware, and everybody else out there aware, that in negotiations and the processing of the application when it comes through staff, even though we have very little way on this, we do advise applicants very clearly of what the commission are wanting and advise staff. And we see applications come through to all boards and City Commission, and we hear the issues that Commission bring up. The latest is the stormwater, the impact on the river. We're very cognizant on that. Part of that discussion is brought forward to the applicant. It's up to the applicant then, if they want to go above code, to do something about that.
Okay. Ms. Vitale?
Yeah, I guess, are you able to provide any clarification then on, like, do you see a benefit? Is there one that's clear?
We've asked the applicant, we've provided the list of the amenity guidelines that the Commission approved for the PUD process. We've asked the applicant to respond to that. We've not had any response.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments?
Michael D'Amelio again from Heritage. We did respond to, we provided that amenity list
I'm sorry, what's your
today.
name?
Michael D'Amelio with
Oh,
Heritage.
right, you're right, sorry.
We did respond to that. I think we provided that to staff.
Right, I provided you a list of 24 amenities, and I just asked for them to be checked yes or no. And is that what you're talking about? That
Yes.
after we spoke, are you saying that you sent
did
that
provide
later,
that.
like at 4 o'clock or something? Yeah, I may have received it, but I haven't had time to see my email since 4 o'clock.
Okay. All right, is there any other comments?
Chair? Obviously, if they say they responded, can we hear the response?
Yeah, I mean, they should,
Oh,
I have
okay.
the list, we can talk about them now.
Do you have the response to the list?
Let me check.
Essentially, we addressed the fact that we did have a lake on the property or water body. There are some amenity items that include the application of electric vehicle charging stations. We do have 3. I know that is a code requirement, but we do have 3 on the property. We have responded to every element and every comment that staff has provided to us. We provided this first application in June of this year. And since that time, we have been diligent in addressing every comment and every question and coming back with affirmative responses. I think that in the comments that staff provided in this report, that it was acknowledged that we had, that staff had agreed with or had acknowledged that the land use was appropriate given our plan for the project. And we went with that.
Do you think that that is accurate, that you agreed as a staff in the change of a land use? Is that what you're saying?
We can advise that what they're proposing is appropriate for a land use change.
That was language, Madam Chair, in the report that came out before this hearing.
Okay.
So,
we can
and I
recommend
think
that.
that's reflective of the fact that we have responded affirmatively to every comment, every question that's been provided to us.
I don't
Well,
think
the
that's correct.
actual, that's a good question, actually. Thank you. The actual language is. Staff. It's a standard statement.
It is a standard statement.
Yeah. But, yeah, I think your question says not that much should be read into that. That's a good point.
Is there any other comments from anyone else on the board?
Yeah, my comment is, initially, because I drive down that Commerce Street all the time, and when I learned that that's where 86 units were going to be placed, or that's what they're proposing, I was like, how can that be? It just doesn't feel right. And then when you consider that there's this huge complex that's being built across, I believe traffic would be a concern also. And it just doesn't feel right, just being right there, Common Street, and with the railroad track being right there. So I'm not a pro like Campbell is, but just the feel of it, and just, I do realize that you're gonna make that only a right turn to get onto Indian Street, which is a good thing, because when you come there, it's very hard to make a left as it is now. So 86 units, which twice that at least for, 2 per household, That's a lot of people to be putting right in that small space right there.
They're actually all 3 bedrooms.
Oh, 3 bedrooms.
Understood. And I'll let Melissa talk a little bit more about the traffic, but I think the intent with the county is the reason that they wanted to limit that traffic going up on Indian was to send everybody south to the signalized access point. One of the other things I just, wanted to mention, we're purchasing this property from Ted Glassrud, who's owned this property for a very long time, actually. Owns quite a bit of all of that area right there. He has been trying to market that property as a commercial use or industrial use for years, and there just hasn't been any demand for it. And again, so he came to us and asked us if we were interested because we had the Trillium site that we were constructing. But again, out of out of all of the parcels that were there, I mean, you can see that there's some other parcels that he owns there that he's owned for the better part of 10 years or so, I'd imagine. But I think he had a contract on this once and it just 30 days, and then I think they fell out of their due diligence for some reason or what it was. But he's been marketing the property as a commercial use, and there just isn't a demand for the commercial use itself. And so, and then we came along. But I just thought I'd, throw that out there because obviously I know that, we talk about the commercial components and job creation and all those other elements that follow along with it. However, to be honest with you, the proximity of that being a commercial parcel would probably not be best suited for it because of the ins, the out, the access of it itself, and the visibility itself. There's that small commercial plaza that's just on the north side of our project right there. I've visited that several times, and I can tell you that for probably the better part of 2 years or so, there's been a for lease sign there. So it's not, again, I'm not really sure what it is. However, I have done commercial development in my career, and again, I just wanted to add that to the commentary because of the fact that Ted has been marketing that for quite some time, and there's just been no takers on it. So I'm happy to answer.
Could I respond to that, please?
Sure.
I don't understand the value of that remark. Certainly, Mr. Glassrud's ability to be successful with his properties is not a concern of this membership, and we have no idea. Mr. Glassrud may have been asking $5 million. So unless you were willing to provide a complete context for his failure to market that property,
No.
I find the remark inadequate in scope.
Well, by any means, I'm not really sure what you're implying. However, all I'm saying is that I know that they've been marketing the property for several years, and there just hasn't been any takers or any interest in the property itself.
So,
That's all.
I somewhat would be a little, but yeah, I kind of agree with that comment because there's new industries that have been built just recently, i.e. next door to you on that corridor. So it could be a case that just now, because now the building has returned, things are going back up, that I don't find that statement valid to this discussion.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion. I feel like we're probably
Yes.
ready to vote.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any further comment? Nope. All right, let's make a motion to vote. Jordan?
Okay, so I motion that we don't approve these zoning changes and we don't move this forward to the commission.
Well, actually, you can't override the procedure of the code. You can vote no on the application, you can continue the application, or you can approve the application with conditions, but you can't vote no that the board doesn't get to hear it.
Right.
Okay.
So you can vote no, but the rest of it.
So,
Okay.
so in
How
these,
should I word that to fit?
They cannot make a motion and it not move forward, correct?
They cannot make a motion.
Correct. And then it would not move forward to the commission.
And then it just fails?
End of the thing, and we provide public comment or whatever.
I would like the city commission to consider that.
You can move,
You can't actually just walk up to.
Right.
You have to do it by public thing.
Right.
May I ask a question for clarification?
It's up to the
I
chair.
understood the comment. What the comment was, if we do not make a motion, it does not move in front of the city commission, correct? Comes back to us. So,
I don't want it to come back
We
to
don't
us,
want that.
so let's vote then.
Just no, to vote
Yeah,
no
so
on the
we're
application.
voting, then my motion is to approve,
No. to
and then
vote
we are
no.
gonna vote no. How do I
motion
word
is
this?
to deny.
The
What?
motion is
The
to
motion is to
deny.
deny.
And then is this motion, we don't need to vote on it three separate. It's one application, correct?
Madam Chair, if you look at the screen, we gave three options, and it would be letter C, not in compliance and not approved.
Okay.
Okay. I still don't know how to word this motion. What?
I'm sorry, can I ask a question? Really, Mike? We have to say it's not in compliance?
No, her motion was, I vote that we deny.
But he just said these are our three choices.
Three options offered by staff. I heard Jackie say, I motion that we deny.
Okay,
If somebody seconds that motion when you call a vote, that's what the record will reflect.
fine, that's, yeah. We
I
don't want to
motion
say
that
not
we
in
deny
compliance.
the applicant's proposal.
Second?
All in favor? Jordan?
No, not all.
Nope.
No, no.
Roll call.
Okay.
Board Member Strom.
No.
Board Member Vitale.
Jackie?
By the way,
We're voting yes on the motion, which is to deny.
Wait,
No, you're voting.
motion is to deny.
so yes.
No, it's to approve.
Okay, so yes. I take back, I am I'm
You're agreeing with the
denial.
motion.
Correct,
To deny the applicant.
correct.
It's a good thing she asked.
This is like a clown show. Yes.
Board Member Vitale.
Yes.
Good job.
Board Member Rich.
Yes.
Vice Chair Bromfield.
Yes.
Chair Lorene.
Yes.
And you abstain.
So can you read, just to make sure we've got it right? We just all unanimously, except for the abstain, voted to deny this application for moving forward, correct?
Pursuant to the chair, the board denied the application unanimously. We can move to the next agenda item.
Great.
Fantastic. And I believe, did we, I don't think, just staff upstate at this point, correct?
Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, applicant.
So is it just staff update? Anybody? Anybody?
I've got a
Just a quick update from staff, yeah.
comment.
So,
What just happened?
Doesn't matter, keep moving.
so from a staff update, just want to, in relation to what we've been, some of the things we've been speaking to tonight, I think Commission will be looking to have a workshop on wetlands, wetlands buffers, and that sort of subject. So we're looking for that to come forward, and I think the city manager is looking for a date to do that. Staff also, myself, attended a conference recently in respect of low-impact development and stormwater initiatives. So I'm sure that we'll be coming forward with some code amendments relating to that to encourage development to move forward with more innovation and better cleaning, water quality of stormwater. You've already approved actually some developments that have actually incorporated some of these things: bioswells, rain gardens, underground storage, and so forth. So you're likely to see those sort of subjects come up in the near future.
Okay, fantastic. Does anybody have any other comments before we adjourn?
Mike?
Sir.
City attorney? Can we have a moratorium?
No. You can have a zoning in progress, and you can have a temporary moratorium.
Could you
but
explain to me what
property
zoning
rights
in
would-
progress
would-
means?
So there's a lot of discussion, and believe it or not, I have actually recently done some research on this issue, just randomly. Anyway, there's there's historically been zonings in progress where a community will enter a zoning in progress, and what happens is when you say that you're going to change zoning, whether it's going to be upwards or downwards, sometimes you get a flood of applications that want to get in before you adopt the new code. So the state law allows, and our code actually has a section in it that allows it as well, allows the commission to announce a zoning in progress and have it take effect immediately, and therefore not take any new applications so no one can sneak in before the new zoning happens. And generally, there's a 6-month window, and there's other case law that says reasonable amount of times that you actually have to address it. You can't just let it sit in limbo. And sometimes the zoning in progress says, we're not going to take another application, and nothing is going to come in until this is over with. And the memo that I was putting together randomly was more of a suggestion of a zoning in progress that went something like this. A zoning in progress that continues to allow applications, that does not impede on property rights to the extent that anybody wanting to submit an application for 15 units or below, based upon what densities they are, some are 10, some are 8, some are 15, but if you're in a commercial zoning that's 15 units that could go to 30, if you come in with an application at 15 or below, it can still be processed by staff until this issue is addressed and resolved by the commission. Would not take any property rights away, would not expose the city to quote unquote Bert Harris claims or taking claims, because no one has vested a right above 15 yet anyway. It's very likely that all of the commercial or multifamily or whatever type of property owners would stand on the sidelines anyway, because that's a right they'd have anyway. So they probably wouldn't submit applications at all, because they'd want to wait to see if it ended up at 30 or 25 or 21 or 17 or whatever it was. So you'd get what I call a breather. You'd get a slowdown, because people wouldn't have their property rights taken away. And if I wanted to build 2 townhouses, I wouldn't be barred from building my 2 townhouses, because it wouldn't be a pure moratorium. But if I wanted to build 300 townhouses, I probably couldn't do that. And there was another hybrid to it that I was kind of tweaking with, and that was that to have it may or may not apply in the CRA, because as I was looking at the CRA area, I'm unable to find a 5-acre or 10-acre parcel. Everything is half-acre and 2 acres and 1 acre, and we start talking about 30 units an acre. Where it really adds up is when you get a 10-acre site. But when you have a half-acre and it's a 10-unit per acre density thing, and somebody wants to put 2 townhouses or a duplex on it, but technically that's 12 units per acre because of the density size, and it violates it and it wipes it out completely. I don't know that that's really the intent of everybody, to completely wipe out like little small infill projects. So I was tweaking, and I have not sent the board as a whole this memo that I've been working on, because no one asked for it yet and I hadn't finalized it. But in light of the fact that you've brought it up today, I will kind of finish it, and I'll send it to you guys as a whole and to the city commission. Recognize that my memo is not going to do anything. It's just going to be some law and some comments on something that could be done. It would probably require a commission, or at least, and to bring it up and second it and put it into play.
You would think so.
But if they brought it up and put it into play, it could be almost immediate, because it could be entered within 48 hours. And again, I'm not suggesting that we completely put a moratorium in and make even the guy wanting to build a single-family home on the lot he's owned for 30 years not be able to come get a permit for 6 months, but instead make a moratorium on anything over 15 units along the corridors and outside and whatever, and maybe they include the CRA. I mean, it's not my policy to make one way or the other. I do get feedback just as you guys have gotten, and it's not my policy. Maybe they deny it, maybe they don't, but I'll put it out there so that people can make that decision and decide how to handle it one way or the other.
And just to clarify for my fellow members, there's nothing we can do. All the units that are in the pipeline will be built.
Well, I can
Can
tell
be
you,
built and probably will be.
can be built.
There's no action we can take to.
You can't undo.
Right, we cannot
approved
undo
units.
any of
Those
that.
Those are vested land. You can, but get your checkbook out, because you get to buy them all.
Yeah,
It's a Bert Harris claim, and they are not cheap.
Well, Mike, you'd have to hire more staff.
No, because I'd confess. I
Oh,
think
yeah.
you guys win. It wouldn't be a fight.
Mike, quick question. We worked on a ordinance for small lots
Yes,
concerning
cottage
that
lots.
issue. Right, where
It's
the
been adopted,
zoning
the
and
city has a
stuff.
cottage lots
Yeah,
ordinance in place.
right.
Doesn't
So they
work.
go over the density, but that still would be in place.
Well, and again, you could do something like that, but I don't know, because, you know, this is a hypothetical conversation, obviously. We're not entering a moratorium as we sit here in the LPA meeting today. I'm not speaking on behalf of any of the city commissioners right now, because I don't have direction or authority from any of them. It may be that, as Campbell pointed out originally, can we enter a moratorium? Well, what's a moratorium? No more permits for 6 months until we rewrite the code. Well, that would mean you can't put your nanny suite on your garage until the code's revised.
Right.
Or do we want to do some kind of a hybrid
Right.
somewhere in between there? And I, along with your lines, I think there are
Yeah.
things that everybody's palatable with, and ideas that people will have no problem with, some infill stuff and some smaller, maybe there's a 4-unit 1965 building that could get torn down and turn it into 6 townhouses, and it only falls as 12 units per acre, and I don't know that that's any heartburn on anybody. And I'm not saying it is or isn't, I'm just saying philosophically that could be acceptable, and so I think the commission needs to kind of debate that and draw that conclusion.
I think that's worthwhile, because then we can determine how many things has already been passed that we don't want to affect.
Absolutely.
So whatever we're doing would affect we don't change the law.
Right,
basically,
exactly.
right?
And by the way, the other thing is, and it's since you brought that up, I'll just digress for a little longer. In the situation of a moratorium, and I know that in the past the city has had a couple come up, and I can't remember what the last one was, but I know that we did a few years ago have a proposed zoning in progress come up, and it actually had several hearings, and at the end of the 6-month period, it didn't get adopted. So it literally, at the end, it just faded away. And we also, now that I'm recalling, there was also a brief zoning in progress as it related to marijuana sales that was presented when it was first thought that maybe marijuana is going to be legal or illegal, and the city didn't know what to do with it. And a lot of cities were bringing up a moratorium on any pharmacies and dispensaries or whatever until such time as you can zone them properly or whatever it might be. And the city's perspective in that is the city chose to take no action at all, and it fell under the same thing as if you could put a Walgreens there, then you could put a dispensary there, and we didn't see that it was a big problem. And plus, after the election came down and 86% of the residents of Stewart voted that they were in favor of legalizing marijuana, it felt kind of contrary to the vote to start saying that they can't have it here after voting in favor of having it here. So there's situations that it ebbs and flows, and in this particular case, by having a zoning in progress, I'm not saying that it's a mandate and that it's going to change the world in any way. I think that what it is more of a discussion period, and it lets the parties, the boards, and everybody get together and put some feedback and maybe a little planning on, where do we want to end up after this time. And sometimes they keep it the way it is, and sometimes they make changes, and could be related to stormwater, could be setbacks, could be height, could be density, could be mass, could be, lots of different things that come up, and it's probably a good exercise, and then the outcome hopefully is based on consensus.
I mean, the Sunshine Law, I find it very constraining.
It's
I pay very close attention.
But
But it's hard, we really can't talk to each
Sunshine's
other.
terrible.
We can't talk to each other.
It sounds bad when you say it's terrible, but it's funny.
No, I don't, no, I understand the value of it, but,
I like transparency.
yeah, you gotta be careful. No, but we have to be able to talk to each other, and like I said, what is the number? What do we want? Where do we want to be?
The irony of the Sunshine Law is that, let's face it, if you were really corrupt and you were really going to be
Yes.
on the take or
Right.
whatever, you'd pick up the phone and call each other and have the conversation anyway. So it's kind of
Cup of coffee.
ridiculous. But the state agency, like the state representatives, they call themselves into session when session starts, and sometimes it's in February, sometimes it's in March, but March 7th, session starts. And they stay in session until session ends. So then they can go to a steakhouse together and talk about whatever they want. And you, as a member of public, do have the right to sit down at the booth with them and listen, unless they stop talking about government business. Then you have to leave. But
Is that what they do?
oh yeah,
Oh, that's clever.
it's a little.
Okay, let's
shaky.
not adjourn.
I mean, it's a little weird that that is how it handled it. And again, the intent is great. I agree that it shouldn't be meetings and things
Yes.
being decided outside of the purview of the general population. But it is very difficult, and I've
We're
sat on the
hamstrung.
LPA
It
before. In fact,
hamstrings us.
I was on it with Bill. And we couldn't talk to each other because it hamstrings you, and it's hard to come in and really know what the others are thinking or doing, and
don't know.
it's difficult.
You don't know.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I can't talk to Kelly here after the meeting starts without talking over here.
Right.
Yeah,
It's
I've been called on that before, so I remember that.
Right, and but the intent, it's well intended. It just makes it very complicated to reach consensus and to really know the feeling of other folks.
Not tonight.
No, you'd have to be dense to get it tonight.
Okay,
Great.
do we need to, can I make a motion to officially adjourn?
Yes.
Second.
Oh, all right, sorry. Somebody else make the motion.
Motion adjourned.
Okay, second.
Second.
Open
Okay, we're
outcry.
good? There you go, done.
Good job, Madam Chair.